Okay, great. So welcome, everyone. This is the first session of a series of conversations that the Center for Arts, Design, and Social Research is doing. The title of this series is The Future is Ours, Hope in Hard Times. And so we're gathering our community artists and researchers to talk together about our work and to share our thoughts on the present condition. And so I'm Dalida Benfield. I'm the Research and Programs Director, and I'd like all of us to please introduce ourselves.
I'm Chris Bratton. I'm the Executive Director of the Center.
And we're in Massachusetts.
Yes, outside of Boston.
Yeah, just outside of Boston, Massachusetts. So who wants to jump in next and introduce yourself?
I'm Mary Ellen Stone, and I am in Providence, Rhode Island, and I am the project director of the Center for Art, Design, and Social Research.
I'm Gabriel Pereira. I am a researcher in residence at the center, and I am right now in very sunny Aarhus, Denmark.
Nice.
Hi, I'm Oning. I'm now stay in Wuhan province. I'm an artist, curator, and writer.
Okay, my name is Susana Pilar. I am a Cuban artist, mainly based between Havana and the Netherlands, where I am currently. And I work mostly with performance, video installation, and sound. And I am one of the fellow artists in this moment for the Center of Art and Social Research.
My name is Bruno. I'm from São Paulo, Brazil. I'm an artist and also a researcher at the São Paulo University, and also a fellow now in the center. And that's it.
I'm Laura. I'm in Paris. I'm an artist and also a fellow with the Center for Art and Research.
I'll go. My name is Sybil. I am the program assistant for the center, and I'm happy to be here. Good morning, everyone, or good night.
Hi, I'm Adam. I'm in Providence, Rhode Island, too. Emmy, photographer, and that's it.
Hello, so I'm Sibonelo Kumete, and I'm in Durban, South Africa. And I'm an urbanist researcher and also a fellow at the Center for Arts, Design, and Social Research.
Okay, it looks like we might have some new folks. But also, Juliana, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm Juliana. I am an activist, especially about migrants' rights, and I'm based in Rome, Italy. And I'm also fellow of Center of Art Design and Social Research. Hello, everybody.
Hello, Juliana.
Hi, Juliana.
Hello.
Eve, you want
Hello.
to? He might not. He's frozen.
Yeah, I think you might be frozen.
Okay, anyone else on the call? I see two other folks.
Hi.
Hello? Hi.
Can you all hear or see me?
Yes.
Yeah, we hear you perfectly and
Yes,
see you.
we were just all introducing ourselves to each other, Catherine.
Oh,
Got it. Yeah. Hi, all. I'm Catherine, coming to you straight from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I work with Dalida and other folks on the Affecting Technologists group.
And I think we have one other person.
And it's cool too. Now we have 2 E's.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes.
So hi, I'm E. Can you hear me? Okay, cool. I am the Assistant Director of Administration at the center and also an artist and starting curating as well. Nice to be here with everyone. Oh, and I'm in Boston too.
Cool, welcome. Okay, well, welcome everyone. And so we're going to gather our thoughts and focus our attention on the work of U Ning for this session. So I invite you, U Ning, to get us started with anything you'd like to share. I shared the wonderful essay that you wrote with the community. So hopefully folks have had a chance to read that. But please start us off with any thoughts that you want to share.
Okay, I will, because now the coronavirus already become a pandemic, so I would really like to talk about this today. I remember in January when we was in Nairobi, I have to leave you guys and go back to China. I mentioned this news from China about the coronavirus. I did not expect it become now a pandemic. And when I was arrived in the airport in Guangzhou in January 23, Wuhan was locked down. I haven't arrived my home in Jingzhou City yet. And the next day, I take the railway, the change and back home in the Jingzhou City. The city is about 200 kilometers from Wuhan. And in 24 January, the whole Hubei province also locked down. Today, I think a lot of the city was locked down now, including New York and Rome and a lot of city. But I think it's quite different. The lockdown in Wuhan and Hubei province is very different from lockdown in New York. You know, we was not allowed to go out. We have to stay in our neighborhood, and all the gate was closed, and then the neighborhood just set up a checkpoint for us. You need to order food from online. All the food supplies organized by the neighborhood committee, and one household only allow one person to go out in some special situation. So as I understood, New York is not like that, right? You still can go out if you wish. But we was forced to stay at home. And the very interesting thing is the food supply was organized by the neighborhood committee, and the neighborhood community actually was supported by a lot of food company that say actually market actually did not disappear like what Zizek imagined in his early piece on the Wuhan pandemic. In his essay, he said markets totally disappear, but no. In the Hubei province and Wuhan city, and the market still work. For example, at the first month of the epidemic, this agriculture company from Shandong province donate a lot of vegetable to Wuhan. And when Wuhan got this vegetable, they they could not find a new channel to distribute this vegetable. So they put all this vegetable to a supermarket, and then people can go there to buy it in a very low price. That means market still work. Market did not disappear, but it was organized quite good by the Chinese government. And the most challenging things for me, especially for my family, during the quarantine, is my mother-in-law. She's a cancer patient, so she have to come back from the cancer hospital and stay at home. Only when she could not bear the age, and he will ask a permission to go to the cancer hospital for treatment. So she have to go between the cancer hospital and our home constantly. I mean, because as the epidemic center, most of the medical resources all organized for the coronavirus patients. So it's squeezing the treatment opportunity for those like cancer patient. That is very bad situation. It was also a huge challenge for our family. So as I read some news from New York, it seems it almost same as the early month in Wuhan, and the test case is not enough, and the hospital beds is not enough. So it caused a lot of social panic. It's almost same like I mean Wuhan and New York today. But compared to the SARS in 2003, the Chinese government actually have a different way to control the epidemic. As the anthropologist, the professor Xiang Biao, who invited me to write essays about this, he have a research. He have compared the SARS in 2003 and the coronavirus in 2019. The SARS triggers a chain reaction for the Chinese government. At that time, the Chinese government mainly controlled the migrant workers, but this time, the Chinese government controlled the whole population. Wherever you are middle class people or migrant people, all the population was controlled. So Professor Xiang Biao suggests a new term as a grid reaction. Grid reaction. That means a grid is a residential community, a district, or a city, and the smallest grid is, let's say, 50 household in the city or 1,000 household in the village, and each grid they have this grid management grid managers, who is volunteer people, and also at the same time, each group have a group head which come from the government, and the group managers will visit every household door to door to check the temperatures of every member of the household and to confirm the rubbish was collected and the car was parking in a right way, and organize the food supply. So this is a different control model this time for Chinese government, it seemed it worked quite well. Even we was quarantined. We surrender our freedom, but we can make ourselves. We can stay safely. So this is different from 2003 and this year, from SARS and coronavirus. How the Chinese government deal with this crisis. Do you have any question? If I keep talking, it will make no sense.
We are listening.
Yeah, my question, Uning, is in this grid structure, were they were the heads and the managers responsive? So, for example, if as an individual or as a family or as a group of families you had a particular need, could they help fulfill that need?
Actually, the managers, because they are volunteer, they actually they don't have payment, and they can help, but they don't have power. You know, especially when some family they was infected, they need to file back in the hospital, and or they need a test kit. The manager will try to help because of the resources is limited, and the manager did not have a power, so actually they could not help a lot, but they can help for the daily they can organize the daily life for you. But in a medical level, they could not, they did not help so much. And during this epidemic, the most shocking thing for me is the technology that used by the Chinese government. At the very beginning, you know, the Communist Party's newspaper, People's Daily. This newspaper worked together with Tencent, the company who behind WeChat. They launched a new program on cell phone. Everybody can check how many infected patients around you, and how every infected patient they can tell you the distance between you and the patients. So it reminds you to how many infected patients in your neighborhood, and all this data was visualized into a map. That is very helpful. In my city, in Jingzhou city, in February, it was in records. It's about more than 1,500 people was infected, and then with this app, you know which area in your city is the most serious, most dangerous. So you can keep you have a you can have a very clear data in your map, and then you can organize your activity in the city. That is at the beginning. And also Ali Group, the biggest IT company in China, Ali Group, also work together with the government. They invent this Ali Health Code program. That means, you know, Alipay is very popular in China, you know, and the Alipay can share all the data with the police and the government. For example, you went to a supermarket, you paid, you buy food, you paid, and then the data will show at the same day day and same time, how many people went to that supermarket to buy something. If one of them was infected, and then the government will organize to ask most of them for quarantine. So the data shared by Alipay and government also help a lot for the control of the epidemic. And the Ali Health Code is very, it's invented by the Ali Group. It's also work quite good in some city like Shanghai and Beijing. With this Ali code, people have to submit your situation, your health situation to this program, and then after 2 weeks, if you are healthy, you are not infected, you will get a code, a green code. If you were infected, and then you will get a red code. With green code, especially in Shanghai, it's not the epidemic center. You can go out to take the bus, take the subway to go to work, you can go out. But with the red code, you have to stay at home, or you have to stay at the hospital. So the Ali Health Code is also a kind of invention by Ali Group to collect the data, the information of all the health situation of people. And the most shocking thing about technology is the drone. The drone was used as a monitor device. The police, the drone will fly on the street or on the village, on the sky of the village, and monitor everybody. If someone did not wear the mask, and the police will shout at them through the speakers which installed on the drone, and then all them go home for self quarantine, and this is really like, you know, the spectacle in 1984. And the other interesting thing is, you know, Chinese government.
Oh, can I make a comment on that question on the question of surveillance? Is that okay? If I'm not interrupting. I just want to say that that's what you're mentioning about the surveillance and the increase of surveillance related to this coronavirus epidemic or pandemic. I think it's like one of the most interesting questions that I think we're all facing right now, wherever we are, in whichever country that we are at, is that the governments are using this perhaps as an opportunity or for real reasons related to, like, they want to get this data to control the pandemic. In the case of Denmark, just to situate what I'm saying, in the case of Denmark, Denmark is now starting to use the cell phone data that tracks your location wherever you are, so that they can know and somehow control the people that may get the virus, which has really, really problematic aspects, right? If the government is tracking me all the time and has you know, a free range to do that, that can be extremely problematic, especially in. I was watching this live stream with Edward Snowden, and he was saying exactly this, that we don't know, like, you know, if those things will be stopped, if those measures of surveillance will be stopped once this situation is gone, right? The governments may say, actually, you know, we'll continue spying on you all the time. And I think that all the countries are facing this right now, perhaps starting to face right now, perhaps some of the things that you were seeing in China already a month ago, are now we're starting to see everywhere, right? The drones, the automated systems of collection and analysis of data, which are really scary, because I think the real question perhaps that we want to ask ourselves is, what of those things is going to continue with us after this pandemic is gone? Which kind of world do we want to live, not only right now, but are we saving some? Are we somehow protecting ourselves right now, but like putting ourselves at risk in the future as well?
Yes, and also maybe I also want to know, related of this, if this kind of surveillance continue now in China after the terrible situation. Do you think it's something that will continue or not, or it's already done and that's it?
It will continue because Chinese government invests so much money in this equipment. You know, they invest a lot in this for this to control the society, especially before the epidemic. In China the face recognition system is everywhere. But during the epidemic, because people wear masks, so the face recognition system doesn't work. And then the police transfer this face recognition system into a fever fighter. At the beginning of the epidemic, the police in the railway station in airport, they're wearing this face recognition helmet, and they can search all the people, and if somebody have a fever, and then they can find the people who has the fever. So I believe after the pandemic, the technology which used into control the society in China will continue, and at the same time will be invest more money and getting and was strengthened more than before, because it's like it's like a proof, like let's say New York or Seoul, or now the city, they all follow China to take the lockdown action. So that make Chinese government believe their decision and their medal is good. So they will continue to do this in the future.
Hi guys. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Andrew here.
Hello.
Uh-oh. Can you hear?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for this. Actually, it's a global process now. It's another kind of virus going around. Already in Europe, they start using the drones to warn people. So it's going to be a global norm very soon. By the way, Oning, I read your paper. And can you also provide some ideas about how the cultural community in China react to this? I think they're kind of last, let's say, opportunity for people to say something before they have to shut up. And just like for us.
At the the censorship during the epidemic is stronger than before, but still there's a Chinese community on Twitter which often spreads something about this, for example, for the truth of the epidemic. And also there's at least 2 or 3 intellectuals from mainland China who launched 2 letters ask Xi Jinping to step down. One from a professor from Tsinghua University, Mr. Xu Zhangyun, and another one from by Xu Zhiyong. He used to be a very activist who always anti Xi Jinping. But these two public letters could not spread into mainland China. They only spread on Twitter. And also this businessman Ren Zhiqiang, he also posed public letters to ask Xi Jinping to step down. And because he was a Communist Party member, he was arrested and for 2 weeks maybe, and now just come out, but still in house arrest, and his opinion is very radical, but I think he has very close relationship with some like Wang Qishan, the official in the central government. So he can speak something, but I believe this make no sense. I mean, today for the political situation, because the control of the whole Chinese society was so tight, and Xi Jinping he got so many power in his hand. For artists or some other people, I don't think they have any opportunity to do something, to contribute something about this situation, the epidemic situation in China, because artists is really, you feel really powerless for this topic. What do you think, Hanlu?
I feel that we are going back to a combination of the years around 29, 30, and also the post-Khrushchev period of Soviet Union, meaning another wave of the Cold War. But the problem is in the West, they are learning from the Chinese. The Western politicians are learning from the Chinese. So there'll be a kind of, interesting, permanent civil war, even within the West, through technology.
And now it's also...
Evelyn,
sorry, this is Evelyn. Hi, Yoning.
Hi.
Yoning.
Yeah, Evelyn.
Yes, don't you think also it's a way, because it's a question of time, and we know that China is our future today, and Italy becomes the future of what's happening in France, for example, because we experience the same things, but with a delay of 1 week to 1 month. And now it seems that what's happening economically as well, because it's this disaster, total disaster for all the countries, but at the same time we can really see China emerging as a leader, starting to reconstruct, and also selling the mask to Europe, because Europe and Western countries seemed not to be prepared, less than Asian countries facing such a pandemic or epidemic. We can see that in Asia, I always saw people with masks every time they are sick, and so mask is used it's culturally part of the health, the hygiene system, no, and social hygienism. But in Western countries, we were not prepared, and we never believed, the governments didn't believe such a progress of the epidemic will go to this disaster. And so now we are not prepared, and it seems that China is emerging economically, but also as a kind of model for the other countries. I mean, for Europe and for the US, which is very it's a return of the order. I mean, a new order is emerging from what's happening today. And yes, I wanted to know your opinion and the opinion of the intellectuals, you know, in China. What do they think? Because at the same time, we know that China is not a democracy. It's still a communist country, but very with a lot of authoritarianism and control of the population. So what are you thinking about this country becoming a model or becoming the leader at the moment? It's very evident.
I think the possibility that this public health crisis may convert into a political crisis will lies on the economic. The Communist Party did not fear people will resist when the city was locked down or when there was quarantine. They don't worry about people. They believe people will surrendering their freedom to make them stay safe. But if the lockdown or the quarantine continues for more than, let's say, 6 months, and the economic come to a standstill, and that will become very dangerous. The Communist Party understood this very well. That is why they just unlocked the Hubei province last month, and Wuhan will also unlock in next week. So the government now engage Chinese people for consumption, engage them to go back to the factory for work, and that is they want to restore the economic. If the economic was in fact and keep stand still for more than 6 months, and I believe the society in quarantine in China will reach a certain point and accumulate it into a critical mass. When the critical mass appears, then it will become a political crisis, and and the revolution will happen. That maybe, but I don't think the critical mass will be so easy to appraise, because the Chinese government now working very hard to restore the economic, to engage people to go back to work, to economic become the most important issue during this epidemic for Chinese government. So if economic still keep like this situation, that will make the Chinese society very dangerous, and also the Communist Party has faced a huge political crisis.
I have a question, Onin. Could you tell us a little bit more? I'm very curious about the first doctor who was trying to warn the government about the virus. The first doctor, the first Chinese doctor who died.
Yeah. He actually Li Wenliang, Dr. Li Wenliang, he posted the first warning information on WeChat, but the original information actually come from a woman daughter. That woman daughter was just in a coverage by the media last month, and and the woman daughter posted the original Wang Lian information on WeChat, and then Dr. Li Wenliang forward to some of his college, and then he was wanted by the police among 8 people, and because he worked in a central hospital in Wuhan, which was the epidemic center of Wuhan, and even he was a eyes doctor, but he also got infected, and then he died. And when he died, it triggers a nationwide angry in China. So a lot of people post in memory of him, and become a very big. It seems like it almost like something like critical mass, but and then the government immediately send somebody to Wuhan to make an investigation, and then regards him as a hero, and then satisfy the public opinion, and then they salute this cries of the public opinions, and after that, a magazine lower coverage on the woman daughters, which earlier than Mr. Li Wenliang, and the story, when the story published, and the censorship machine immediately banned it, and all the Chinese people, and then translated into different language version and post on social media. That was very interesting, and that is kind of a common idea for the ordinary people. That means the censorship is very the censorship is the AI can ban all the posts on the social media, the sensitive posts, but the people trying to fool the AI machine, so they translated the articles into some language which the AI machine could not recognize, and post on the social media, and that is the most I think the most interesting thing during the epidemic in China. But that is not enough. People just using a very I can call it conning wave, but it's not officially protect, So they just trying to find a little space for their speech, and they keep off this catch me if you can game with the AI censorship machine. But in the political situation in China now, people could not take any protests in action, actually. So my essays was invited by Mr. Xiang Biao. Actually, it was mainly based on the mobility idea, because his research mainly focused on mobility in the society and economic. So my essays trying to discuss the mobility with the idea of immobility. So the essay is very short because I have to focus on the mobility topic. But actually, I also have some idea about this globalization. A lot of people believe the globalization will stop after this pandemic, but I don't think so. I mean, after the pandemic, the globalization will continue. When there's no coronavirus in the city or in the nature, the tourists will break out, will go out to everywhere. And also the company, the airline company, the everything will going back. Globalization is will not stop. It will be continued. But the pandemic may be make some space. The crisis maybe make some space for something I always interested. That is intentional community. I believe every times in the history, let's say every crisis will make will urge people to explore the alternative possibility for the future. Like during the industrial revolution in UK, the bad condition in the factory forced some people to move to the United States to found to found their utopian in the United States, in Northern America. That is the story of Saker, or the story of Robert Owen. And during the panics of 1837 in the United States, there's a lot of communitarian experience happen in the United States, like Oneida community or Blue Farm, and at the and during the Vietnam War crisis, and in Northern America, then the Back to the Land movement was kicked off. So this time, this crisis, this pandemic crisis, maybe make some space for the intentional community, that people will move to some small place which far from the city central, and they will live in a low cost style, and maybe they will try to live in a nature friendly life, and also a collective living, and set up some mutual age community. Maybe this is a one of option for the post pandemic era. Maybe somebody, because the economic, to restore the economic is need some times, and people don't have money, so they have to trying to search for some low cost living. That is a possibility for them to move to some small place to set up some mutual age community. Maybe that will be one of the option in the post pandemic era.
Sorry to interrupt. This is a question also that this locality, this return to locality, could become also a return to nationalism, and it's what is drawing now as well. Le repli, comme on dit. The return to
regression towards oneself.
Yeah, to the nationalism.
Yeah. Actually, one of these pardon. I just want to say one thing. Actually, one of the last most efficient weapon now for the politicians is nationalism and populism. We all know that, but and then the funny thing is globalization. It's being also proclaimed by the Chinese now to continue with the global economy, because they all know that the economy, it's no longer possible to be a national. So they are competing on the global ground of the national model.
Yes, nationalism will become mainstream in the future, I think, because during the epidemic, we at the first month in China, we found a lot of a village. They blocked their entrance to the village, and they also searched in their storage to find some cold weapon to guide the entrance, not allow anybody enter their village, and and I don't say this. I would like to say this as kind of a native consciousness, a native consciousness. Actually, nationalist is based on this native consciousness. And this, and also you can find just at this moment, the propaganda campaign from China, they mainly working on promotes China is a big and very strong and helpful nation that can maybe leave the world and help the world. So this is a very kind of a nationalist, and this kind of nationalist actually come from the long tradition of the native consciousness.
Hey, Udi, I do have a question as well. So one thing that we're experiencing now in the United States, and particularly on the East Coast, is widespread inability or lack of desire of people to keep up traditional economic pretenses. What I mean is like rent strikes, right? Like people are like, we don't have jobs, we cannot make rent, we're going to band together as tenants to not pay rent, or entire industries needing bailouts. So I'm wondering, how has China dealt with this sort of situation when it came up? I haven't heard anything about the kinds of like economic responses by individuals, collectives, and governments as they differ between countries.
Sorry, could you repeat, because I could not listen so clear.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so basically I'm wondering about how the American response to the crisis, like widespread inability to work, causing inability to pay, and resulting in either collective action or government action. For example, rent strikes on the collective part, or bailouts on the government part, right? Like, how has that corresponded to actions in China, especially because the collective action standards are different there, and government action is different there?
So you mean that now the United States government, they pay for the people, just like China, they pay for those people who was infected. They provide the funding for treatment.
I mean, there's a variety of economic actions the government has taken, but the latest one is, for example, a stimulus check to all Americans of about $2,000, right? So, and there are other actions that people have taken collectively, like refusing to pay rent, or like calling off jobs and so on, or mutual aid to fund artists who are out of work, things like that. So what kinds of economic actions happened in China?
Yes, and now also some people trying to ask the government to pay to give money directly to the people, but this not happened yet. But the policy like United States who give money to people directly reminds me of idea of the basic income idea, the universal basic income idea, which was discussed quite a lot last year by some European economic and activist people. The basic income the universal basic income ideas that mean the government should give money directly to the people, and they don't need to work because they are citizens, and then they can get this basic income. So this is quite a radical idea, but I don't know if this can realize in the future. But some book about this already triggers a lot of discussion about this. But during this pandemic, some government already realized this, that wherever you do any job, every citizen can get money, 2,000 euro, right? At 2,000 US dollar, right? In the United States for everybody. For children, it's 800, right? This is a really like communism idea. It's very utopian idea, but in this special periods of this pandemic, it was realized by the government, which believe in the free market, like United States. So I was very surprised the United States government, when they face this special situation, they can immediately become a big government. As before, it always say we are a small government. We like a big market. We small government and big market. And now during this special periods, the big government, the small government, and immediately became a big government, and then they can collect a huge resources and trying to save this situation in United States. This is I mean, the United States government is quite feasible for the special situation. It's so good. You can say you cannot say Chinese government is all along government, and United States government is not. It's just a small government. And sometimes, during this situation, the United States government can become a all-along government.
Thanks.
Oni, I like your expression all-around government. I think it's quite an innovation, quite an invention as a concept. Because actually, the funny thing is, we all consider that the Chinese government is a totalitarian, meaning it tries to put everything into one and control everything, right? And in this totalitarian structure, there's no public space. There's only one space. Meaning, actually, there's no private space neither, because since there's no private space, then there's no public space. That's the ideal situation of how the totalitarian politics works. And in Europe, and also in the States, to different degrees, there's been a long tradition of social welfare tradition, which is not totalitarian, which is a interesting balance between the respect of private property and space. Hence, we need to build a public space in which all this private interest can meet and arrive at certain agreement. Right? That's how democracy works. And now these two systems are actually competing again, because in Europe, especially in Europe, I think in the States, it's even more, would be a more radical revolution if it comes to rediscuss the question of social welfare, to reconstruct the a social welfare state. In Europe, actually, it's a very radical decision as the European community decided to allow all the members to spend much more money than they have, meaning this 3% deficit limit is no longer applied in this special period. So the government can have free hands to rescue the situation, to spend money on, job losses and, social welfare and all these things, and healthcare, of course. And so now I think that the thing is actually in how much the Chinese public understands the difference between a totalitarian system and social welfare systems. What makes the difference? How these two systems would compete in the future would be, I think, a very interesting question.
Yes, when we use the all-round government, actually in China, in the Chinese language, actually it's a kind of a term that the totalitarian politics it's a sensitive term in Chinese language. So we use the all-round government.
叫什么？
that in 全能政府。
OK
全能政府，不是 ，it's not a
It's like a
集权政府。
government of all capacity.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Or extended.
No,
beyond the
全能
borders.
meaning can
No.
do anything.
Okay.
Yeah, all capacities. I think that's an interesting concept. Maybe in the future we are all going to this all capacity of the states, and nobody is capable to do anything by himself.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's like especially when human being face this disaster, everybody need all capacity state. That is why the idea of state or the idea of the country will become stronger and stronger, and the nationalists also become stronger and stronger.
Yeah. And then when it collapses, would be an even stronger disaster.
Well, maybe picking up on that notion of collapse, I wanted
Hi,
to
Chris.
Hi, Hadru.
Hello.
I wanted to maybe
Get closer. We don't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the idea of all-around government and maybe relate it specifically to the situation in the United States. Yes, the U.S. government did move quickly, as Catherine said, about a bailout, but it's really an extraordinary crisis here. And to your point, it's a in a sense, China has quote unquote solved the problem of the epidemic or the pandemic, and now is moving on to really aggressively addressing the economic impact of the pandemic. Here in the United States, we have a very different situation where the government has not solved the question of the pandemic and has tried to leapfrog ahead to the economic question, recognizing that the economic question, that their political fate, meaning this presidency, is tied to the economics, right? And so, so this is partly what else is extraordinary about it is, as you've probably seen, over 7 million people have lost their jobs in a very, very short space of time, a huge number, historically unprecedented. And what the future of that is, really, it is already political, right? And so, so maybe all of that, thinking about all of that, and again, from the context of the United States, is how could we imagine, back to your kind of utopian challenge of what the future might hold for us, kind of new forms of community, kind of coming out of this, as Catherine again points to, new, these new forms of political activism that are refusing the kind of economic regime, the rent strikes, the occupations, the walkouts that are now starting to happen very, very frequently. How can we imagine that?
Hi, Chris. I could not hear.
I think he lost signal. Yeah, they lost
Yeah,
signal.
yeah. They don't have signal.
Yeah.
And the image stop is in a really good frame.
Yeah. There we go. Chris, you were saying how could we, and then it stopped.
I was saying, yeah, I was saying, how might we, I mean, again, I think the political consequences of the situation in the United States are really profound and unknowable. And if we can kind of, in a way, put aside the suffering that all of this is creating and will create, the political possibility is very great for something else emerging. I kind of go back to your utopian idea about the kind of new forms of communitarianism that might come out of this, and maybe Eveline's comment about nationalism. Can we imagine a kind of communitarianism of the future that actually embraces new forms of globality rather than falling into a kind of nativist or nationalist politics?
As I know, all the politicians, they always focus on economic, because economic is the most important things to make the society stable. That is why Trump always pay attention to the stock market rather than the pandemic. The the utopian possibility actually was not engaged by people. It maybe it will some practice, some communitarian practice will emergent. It's not because people want to. It was forced by this crisis because people have no money. People have no job opportunity. Then they have to maybe to live in a collective life and live in a small place far from the city central, and they have to help each other. They have to be maybe it will not a popular option after the pandemic, but it will be one of the option, and especially for those people who lost their job, who don't have enough money to survival, and then they have to take this option, maybe.
I have a question. Can you hear me? I don't think my signal is as strong.
Yes.
Okay. So based on what I've been seeing, especially when you guys are talking about post-pandemic new ways of living, I've been seeing a lot of different countries, including Haiti, people have been creating hand washing stations for people who do not have the option of either washing their hands or just not be able to stay at home due to the type of job that they have. And it's very interesting to see the innovation people come with. They will turn like giant tin cans into ways to wash your hands. And this also made me think of the part in your article when your essay, when you talked about the satellite images of pollution. How do you see this going post-pandemic in terms of people? Will people be going a different route in terms of transportation, but also how they maintain social distance? Because everybody's always been saying to return back to taking more buses to reduce carbon issues, but with social distancing now, that comes in as a conflict for it. And I was just wondering what you were thinking about the innovation of people's new creative ways of living and going into agricultural growth and etc.
Actually, before the epidemic, about 10 years ago, in Wuhan, the epidemic center of China, in Wuhan, in about 10 years ago, there's a group of punk and anarchy, Chinese anarchy. You know, Wuhan is the birthplace for Chinese punk. And about 10 years ago, there's a group of anarchy. They rent a house, a very cheap house, in the outside of Wuhan, in a village. And then they trying to practice this collective living. And they don't work. They don't take any job. And then they live together and stay together and just trying to exchange their labors for some basic necessity for living. They pay a lot of attention to reduce their impact on the environment. They limited their activity, try to reduce the impact on the environmental, and at the same time, because they did not take job, so they also reduce the dependence on cash. But they live together and living a very simple life, and every week organize event to talk about some very radical idea, and also they publish magazine to talk about the philosophical idea about simple life and anarchy. And this practice, actually, they give a very example. It lasts about 2 years until it was banned by the government. But they really can live in a very happy life outside of the Wuhan, in the countryside, and they don't use too much cash. And for me, that is impossible for some people that could not have so much resources in the contemporary conception society. Actually, they can try this kind of alternative life, but maybe that can be work better for those young people who have a quite good education. Actually, most of this anarchy, they have quite good education, but for those people, for those grassroots people, for example, some farmers, some villagers, that will be another problem. I mean, I believe this pandemic will have a great impact on those people. If they continue to do agricultural work in the countryside, maybe they can sell their product to the city. But now most of them they don't farm. So when I live in the Bishan village, I found actually every villagers, they have to go to the county town to buy the rice, and the rice actually was import from Thailand. No farmers produce rice. So sometimes when in 2003, when the SARS happened, and some scholars said, okay, the Chinese rural society have a very stable social structures that can avoid the impact of the SARS. or any epidemic, it's totally not true, because the food supply actually was not produced by themselves. They have to buy food from the market, and the market connected to the international import system. So even in a small village in Anhui province, they have to buy rice from Thailand or from Vietnam. So the village is totally involved in a globalization system. So for them, if the globalization process stop, maybe they will have to farm again to produce food by themselves again. That is good, I think.
So I know, Ning, that it's well, first of all, it's quite late there. So we want to be sure you get some sleep. But also, I want to say congratulations on finishing your book.
Thank you.
Amazing, and I know you're sharing, some of that research with us right now as you're talking about the different utopian communities that you write about in the book. But I'm wondering, maybe in closing, if you could share with us what that process was like of finishing your book in the midst of the pandemic.
Yeah, it's very helpful because during the quarantine, it helped me to focus on my book and spend most of my times on this book. And the book I show on Instagram actually is a collective writing, but I mainly working on the new book that is I submit to Center for Art, Design and Social Research. It's about it's about utopian film. The topic is utopian film. It's about my field research on different historical sites of the utopian from 19th century. And when I'm working on this book, and then suddenly the epidemic happened, I think this is a very good timing for me, because my research actually can provide a lot of historical experience for the post-pandemic era. Maybe the historical experience may be very helpful for those people who are trying to find out alternative life after the pandemic. So I feel very happy.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Oning.
Thank you.
I think I own you a preface.
Yeah, but take your time, Hanru. The production needs at least 6 months from the publisher.
Yeah, everything's very slow.
Yeah.
You know,
it's normal.
You know what Deleuze say? They say we evolve and we die from our polymorphous and rhizomatic code, plus more than dying from the descendant disease that come from their own descendants. So we all die one day, but not from the disease of our grandparents.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful quote. Thank you.
Actually, there is an excellent sentence by Pascal. but I don't have it now. But he was saying already that the most disturbing thing for human beings is to stay alone in a room. He was already saying, I have to find the quote.
Oh, Jody.
Okay, guys, we have to go.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Yeah, we're waiting
Thank you very much.
for a project in Rome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for this. And we will
Thank you.
same time, same channel next Friday. And we will toss the starting conversation to another member of our community to be announced. So we'll be in touch and take good care. Stay well, and we'll see you soon.
Okay. See you in
Take
next
care,
Friday.
guys.
Bye-bye.
See you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Juliana, Sibonello, Emmy.